Hey, how you doing? It's me, San Martino, over here at the Prescott E-News office, and we're doing the Prescott Talks. And your host, Glenn Martin.
And good morning, Prescott. 10 o'clock, or what are we at? 10 on a beautiful Friday morning in Prescott. We want to thank you, Martine, for joining us and
I'm always
being part of
here
the
for you.
podcast. Today we're also joined with Lynn Lemaster, our editor-in-chief for Prescott E-News, and we have a special guest today. Today we are talking to the Chief of Police of Prescott, the City of Prescott, Chief Debora Black.
Good morning.
Hi, Debora.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you, Chief. Well, we always start off our talk with a little bit about you, where you came from, as part of your history, and how you got to Prescott.
Sure. I think my story is pretty widely known, but I'll share a little bit. I have been in law enforcement for 38 years. I started
That's a long time.
started in 1980 with the Phoenix Police Department. What led me to policing generally is I started my major in college as a sociology major, and within that program there were criminal justice classes that I found much more interesting, much more active, and so I changed my major, graduated, and this was back in Illinois. I grew up outside of Chicago, and then applied for several agencies back there with zero success. In the late 70s, there just really wasn't a lot of opportunity for women in this profession. So my family relocated to Phoenix. I followed, realizing it's like 70 degrees and sunny
That's
And,
my reason of staying in Prescott is the weather.
in Arizona. And so that's where I started my career, was with the Phoenix Police Department, and I served there for 25 years. I had achieved the rank of Assistant Police Chief there. Really thought I was going to go off and do something different. In 2006, I left there. Turned out it was just a sabbatical. I took about 6 months. Spent time with my daughter, who was in high school at the time. For the first time in my life, I was a stay-at-home mom and could really work on some other projects, some writing and teaching and things like that. And then I was recruited to the Glendale Police Department, and I started there late 2006, stayed there for about 10 years. What led me to Prescott is my husband and I bought a home here in 2012. We knew we wanted to live here. This is where our retirement was going to be, like so many people that come to Prescott.
We ask that question all the time, like, how did you find Prescott? You know that, and then all of a sudden they show up here, and then they're like, we're staying.
Yeah,
We're staying.
and through the years, we had visited here. I had been to several conferences here, a lot of Girl Scout activity here when I was on the board with the Arizona Girl Scout Council. And so we found Prescott. We loved Prescott. We knew this is where we wanted to be long term, and we're perfectly happy with that plan. And in 2016, the job opened for a police chief. And I was really feeling the strain of working in the Valley, being a police chief in Glendale, very violent. 3 officers were ambushed by gunfire in the first 3 months of 2016. So it was changing and getting really exhausting. Mm-hmm. And plus, my husband was here much of the time. So having that distance, really, it seemed like it was a good time to maybe do something different.
So you decided to become the chief of police in Prescott.
Well, I did a lot of research. I really wanted to make sure that I was what the Prescott Police Department and the city of Prescott and our community needed. So I talked to a lot of people, and decided. Really, the last hour of the last day the recruitment was open, I submitted my application.
Mm-hmm. That's
And,
so funny. I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, but like, is this the truth? Are you the first ever woman chief of
Yes.
Prescott?
Yes.
That is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
That's a very huge accomplishment.
And what really makes Prescott unique, and I think wonderful, is Amy Bonney is deputy chief. So having an agency anywhere in the country that's led by 2 women is incredibly unique.
Yeah, I think that is very much so. And from what I've been reading and what I've been seeing, you guys have been accomplishing a lot of cool things. I know that there is some issues that Glenn was going to go ahead and bring up. First of all, I just wanted to know who you were. And as far as our readers and viewers, I asked a question before she got on, like, let's find out about her, where she comes from and why she's here and what makes her want to be a police officer. In some cases, like for instance, sometimes I like to save and help people. And I always say I'm Captain Save 'em.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But going into the police, like the police force or anything to that effect, would have kind of like put me on one side of the fence rather than being able to be on both sides of the fence, if that makes any sense. Where like I tell Glenn all the time, I'm not political. I'm never going to sit on one of the side of the other, because it's just like, why can't we just like be human and take care of humanity in general? So, being in your place, I assume that what you wanted to do was to protect the community, if that's the,
Sure, and when we start our careers, a lot of what we hear from people that are applying for the job or are new in the job is that you do want to serve, you do want to help, you do want to keep people safe. And this is a great opportunity to accomplish that personal mission. And the job can be very, very difficult. We work shifts our entire career. So it's not a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, even for me. So you're committing to 20, 25, 30 plus years of being available, dropping what you're doing, leaving your family to go help somebody else's family. And so, but it's that larger mission of keeping Prescott safe. Mm-hmm. That every member of the department, whether they're a police officer, a dispatcher, or many civilian members. Citizens on patrol, volunteers are essential to achieving that mission. And that's what we do every day. That's what they commit to every single day.
I think there's a reason that if you look at a squad car in Los Angeles, on the side it says to protect and serve. And I think that logo goes a long way with the outlook that many of the police officers have. I can tell you, from experience and having friends, it sure ain't for the pay. So it is a service, and it's like the chief said, a lot of these guys go out when people are running the other way, they're running in. And their whole mission is to protect the community, and they take that very seriously. And I got to tell you, I thank every one of them.
Yeah.
Anyone who wears a badge.
Yeah.
Well, and
has the highest respect from me.
I can tell you that in Prescott, we enjoy a much higher level of community support than you see in a lot of communities. And there's reasons for that. One thing here is that we're small, and this is a very community-minded population. So, partly because of the number of retirees, people have time on their hands, they really get connected with issues that they are interested in and passionate about. But our officers all day long hear it. People say thank you, and that means the world.
Yeah, being born and raised here, a lot of my friends from high school are all officers or detectives or somebody that is, in the position of protecting our community, which, I do on a regular basis, and just my personal walk down the streets, like, this is how I want to live, especially if it's in my community in general. So, we never want to see violence. We don't ever want to see, problems that are happening in other cities or countries. So I commend you. Thank you for all the things that you're doing. So let's talk about some crazy things that are happening in this town.
Let's shift gears.
I understand Prescott is beautiful, but we still have an issue. We do deal with issues. Once again, Glenn, he put on a post earlier, and then we want to talk about some of these issues.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, before we get really into some of the potatoes and meat, is policing in Prescott, Chief. What do you see out on the street? We don't see it as citizens, but as the chief of police, where are the opportunities, if there are opportunities out there, that we should be aware of?
So the differences between a community the size of Prescott, where we're located, and maybe some of the valley agencies, It could look like we don't have crime problems. We do. And a lot of it, and what we spend a lot of our time doing, is helping people protect themselves, protect their stuff. I do believe that because we have a lot of people that are prepared to protect themselves, they are armed, they are prepared to protect their property. I think that plays a role in the level of violent crime that we have here, which is very, very low. I love to brag to, not that it's anything I'm doing directly or our people are doing directly, but it was July of 2018 before we had our first armed robbery in Prescott. And that was an aggravated robbery. It wasn't a weapon involved. I think that probably in the Valley, most agencies within the first 12 hours of 2018 had more than one armed robbery. So I think that plays a role. I think that because our neighborhoods are active all the time, people are out, they're walking their dogs, they're talking to their neighbors. I think knowing each other and looking out for each other is very, very helpful in preventing property crime and things like that. We use citizens on patrol for that reason. They're out in the neighborhoods, so they're not police officers, but they are aware of what's going on.
Eyes and
They do,
ears.
they do vacation.
Just the presence
yeah,
basically says, oh, look at somebody's there watching us.
and they do vacation watches and things like that to protect people's property.
On the line of what you're talking about, we have a viewer asking a question right now. Compared to the level of crime here, what does it compare to where you served before? Obviously, you already established that just right now. So if you didn't hear what she said, let her know exactly. Thank you, Carol, for your question.
Yeah, Prescott is very safe, and we look at crime stats not as the only measure of our effectiveness, but that is something that universally every police department provides crime data. We do it through DPS, it goes to the FBI. And for the past 3 years, we have seen a reduction. Those are things, very, very serious crimes like homicide and sexual assault and robbery, auto thefts, burglary, and thefts. Most of our crime here is theft. And a lot of that is driven by some of the businesses that we have, right? Mm-hmm. So they do their best.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on these businesses that we have?
So Walmart, not that they're doing anything wrong, but it's a huge store. It tends to be, and this is everywhere. They have strong loss prevention practices, meaning when people try to shoplift or people have an organized crew of people that are actively going in and taking high value items and then selling them online or various means. They are a target. Best Buy is a target. Costco, to some extent, is a target. So the majority of our what's called UCR Part 1 crimes, and this is true in most communities, but it's theft. The other thing we really pay attention to, and this goes along the lines of prevention, so the mayor likes to say that he felt so safe here, he still feels safe here, but it wasn't until he became mayor that he started locking his doors in his home. Mm. So I love that. I love it, and I hear that a lot in community meetings. But please lock your doors. There's no reason to create an opportunity for somebody to come in and take your stuff, or even worse, harm you or your pets, or do any damage on your property. So if you take those basic precautions, locking your home, locking your car. We did an analysis year before last. 94% of our vehicle burglaries, where somebody went into a vehicle and took something, 94% of them, the cars weren't locked. And there was something of value inside the car. So you don't have people running through, breaking windows, grabbing stuff. They're just going, pulling door handles.
Okay, so I've lived here all my life, and when you say open doors, leave them open, whatever, I leave my doors open. And the crazy part about most of my, career here in life, if anything ever happened, you would find out who did it in a matter of 30 minutes. Yeah. So I have a funny story. I had a detail shop on Gurley Street, and some kids, I don't know what they were doing. From what I heard, they were doing a scavenger hunt. They needed a bunch of cones, and I had a bunch of cones out my front yard or my front parking lot. They stole them. and I had them all on camera. So I just posted the picture on,
Right.
Facebook, because now Facebook is a really huge tool for finding, people that are doing stupid crimes. Not within 30 minutes, I had a parent of a friend of the parent's car saying, "Oh, I know that vehicle. I'll give you a call right back." Yeah. Sure enough, found those dang cones. They were all returned. One was actually taking a trip up to New York because they're in college or something, and they're getting ready to go to college and stuff. They're like, "We'll return it to you whenever we get back." So, fun fact, man, you can't get away with anything in Prescott because it really is small, and people love to go ahead and watch out for each other. And in most cases, let's talk about some of these said criminals. Where are they derived from? Are they here because of a certain reason, or talk about these criminals that are getting busted for petty theft.
So there's a perception that a lot of our crime is driven from the recovery and the sober living homes, and I don't believe that is actually borne out with data. I do know that when people come here for whatever purpose, whether it's
Are you talking about rehab?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're talking about people that come here for a job or for school and something goes wrong and they're no longer connected to those institutions and they fall into homelessness, and we're talking about primarily young people, then, yeah, you might see some of that crime being driven by people that are doing what they need to do to support themselves, which a lot of times is crime.
Yeah.
So stealing something that could be sold, stealing something that is needed
to get to the next
through the
fix.
day. Yeah.
So, Glenn, you done a lot with Matt Force, or in general the whole rehabs that come into town. And me being once again born and raised here, I never really seen anybody that was on heroin. And owning a business, a lot of our employees are actually these rehab kids, or grown-ups, or whatever you may want to call them at the time. It's kind of weird. I actually seen one person that just got done doing a fix or whatever, and he looked like he was getting ready to like throw up and die. And I'm like, "Man, do you want me to call the ambulance?" She's like, "No, I must have ate something different." I was like, "You look like you ate way more than something different, man." And it really triggered in my head really, really quick. And I ended up talking to a couple of the rehab owners, like, what do you guys do with these type of kids that don't want to go through the whole rehab and they want to go ahead and bail out? Do you find them and take them back home? Do you find them and take them to a safe place, maybe jail? Or, what do you do with them? And at a point in time there, it seems like they just let them go. They just, you don't want to be a part of rehab? Do you have any, rebuttals on those?
Well, yeah, I can speak to that. I want to go back just a little bit though, and kind of wrap up what the chief was saying. So most of our crime, in your opinion, or statistically showing, is crime of property, and not so much violent Class 1 felonies.
Right.
So I think that's an interesting comment. I'll get into the Second Amendment about that in a moment. I think everybody knows I'm pretty much a Second Amendment supporter. But going back to your question, San Martin, yeah, there was a time when this problem was much more prevalent. And I can tell you, I was the chairman of the Sober Home Committee, and my direct liaison to the city is sitting right here next to me, and she gave me all the support that I could ever ask for. So I have really a hard regards for our chief of police. The ordinance that was put in place here in Prescott really answered a lot of those problems. One of the problems that you were saying is, if they don't comply with the program, what happens to them? Prior to the ordinance, that person was usually dropped down at the square and said, "Here you go, here's your bag," and we'd see him out there with a suitcase crying normally. We're in America, so if somebody's going to get rejected out of these programs, if they don't want to leave, they don't have to leave. Again, this is America, we have that choice. But with the ordinance, that patient or that person is offered a trip home. If they live in New York, if they live in New Jersey, that's already been settled that if something was to go wrong, that person is to go back, at least have the ticket to go back. I personally dealt with kids that were being thrown out of these homes with absolutely nothing, and from New York. I think I told this story before, and we had it in our ad hoc committee, and we made the arrangements and donated the money or whatever we had to do to get those kids back home. That's where they wanted to go. Prior to the ordinance, that didn't happen. So that solved a lot of problems. Another problem that was solved is the kids running out unsupervised. There's a 24-hour house manager that has to be trained and gone through a school. This can't be somebody who is 18 years old and just found sobriety 2 months ago. So they have to go through a training to be a house manager, and there's somebody awake 24 hours a day. We found that in a lot of these homes, the kids would go to bed, and I use the word kids, these are adults, but they act like kids. It would be lights out, they'd crawl through the house, through the windows, and they would go down to Phoenix, get a hit, come back, and nobody would know the difference the next day, or they'd be out doing property crimes or what have you. So being that I know that there's a lot of misconceptions out there that aren't so that weren't at one time, but I think we've made a huge progress on that.
We have.
I'll let the chief speak to that.
And that a lot of that is due to the work of Glenn and the mayor's committee, ad hoc committee, which is now the mayor's commission on prevention, addiction, and recovery. And I really don't want to give the wrong impression here. I have great sympathy and empathy for people that are struggling with addiction.
I do too.
And we want them to get well. And what the work of Glenn and others really accomplished was getting those bad actors, the rehab industry. At that time, a lot of it was very exploitive. They weren't providing good care. They weren't helping people who traveled here from all over the country get well, which is really what they wanted. Whatever motivated them, whether it was, they were on probation or they had a family member that was just so desperate to get them help, they landed in Prescott. And a lot of those people did get well, and they are still here, and they're serving in our community. They're filling a vital role here in our community, and that's what we want for everybody. We can talk for hours about how this was all created, how addiction, first to pills and then to heroin, and now we've got this very serious threat of fentanyl in our community, in our nation, how that all developed. But 100% it is related to the border, it is related to the cartel, and that is affecting people's lives here in Prescott.
Yep. And one of the crazy things, once again, acknowledging all the stuff that has been coming into Prescott and doing the tragic stuff that is happening all over the area. Excuse me. And then having it come and be a part of this community is really, really heartfelt, because I never knew there was such a heroin addiction or opiate addiction that just ravages families, ravages them. And I've seen it firsthand here in Prescott, so I'm just like, ouch, to have those type of communities or even people coming into town, it really honestly scared me, because now I have to be vigilant or whatever towards these type of things, and it was it was just like a huge impact, very huge impact on businesses, especially in Prescott, a very big impact on businesses. And people are saying, oh, now we don't have the throwaway workers no more. We have workers that come in and do their thing and they go away. They don't have that now because of this new thing that was adopted here as far as an ordinance. So, in most cases, everybody is they do wrong and they have a chance to do good. And that's what we hope that they do here in our community in general. So
I tell everybody that the people who are addicts today never woke up one morning and said, you know what, I'm going to be an addict today. That doesn't happen. It sneaks up behind them, and all of a sudden they're in trouble. They definitely need to have somewhere they can go to get well. If they want to get well, they need somewhere to go. We had Doug Dolan on, and I think we talked pretty much on about the sober home and the rehab community. But these are our sons, our daughters, our police officers, our doctors, our lawyers, and they're worth saving. And to the chief's point, when we are successful, these people go on to be successful. They become family members. I mean, when I say that, fathers, mothers, and they live a whole life. Sometimes that doesn't happen. We know that we lose 275 the last time I saw a day of people dying of opiate addiction. So it's out there. It's a crisis, and it's something that we need to face. But here in Prescott, I think we addressed it, and I think we addressed it well, and I think we made a big difference, and I'm personally proud of it, and I'm hoping that the people who do come here to look for sobriety find it, and if they want to stay, again, this is America. If they want to stay and contribute to our community, that's awesome.
In a good way.
If they want to keep using, go back to New Jersey.
It was kind of funny. One time I had one.
It's like I don't want to sound like I'm going to be sitting here singing Kumbaya, because that's not me. I mean, I'm very straightforward. It's either you want to get well, you don't want to get well, and if you don't want to get well, go back home.
Yeah, we had a couple of runaways that stopped over there because we were by the Sober Way sober house, as they were called, Sober Way, and they would be running away, and they would stop at my car wash, not acknowledging that they're going to be sitting with one of the most influential people in town about just being a real person in general. And they sit there and they're just like, what the heck did I just get myself into? But then I would get in contact with the owners and the people that are supposed to be there, and they're like, San Martin, let them hang out, we'll come talk with them when they're ready, just don't let them leave. And I'm like, what? Yeah. Like, I got things to do, man, besides try to babysit. But needless to say, I really do feel for most people, and everybody's human. Yes, everybody has faults, and everybody has an issue and stuff. And I don't want to jump off this subject, but
can I say one more thing?
Go ahead.
Because we have seen the impact of a generation that has been victimized by this crisis, this heroin epidemic, opioid crisis. We really have to focus on prevention. And Matt Forrest does a wonderful job here in our county to that end. And so what we know from the youth drug surveys is that youth start using substance, whether that's alcohol, marijuana, usually that's the entry, sometimes pills. It's for one of two reasons. One, it's fun, curious, my friends are doing it. That has been traditional. But the other thing that I find very alarming, and I know Marilee Fowler and Leslie Horton are really focused on this, is kids are using it to numb themselves because they're in pain, they're feeling stress, they don't have support, or they don't feel that they're supported in other ways. That's something that we really have to pay attention to, because the substance of today is so much more, whether it's marijuana, certainly heroin pills, the mimic pills that are laced with fentanyl. One pill that's shared can kill a young person, can kill anybody. And so that's why this message, Stop Fentanyl Now, is so important, and to encourage our young people, don't try anything, because you don't know what's in it. And, for whatever it is that's kind of motivating them or drawing them to try that, we have to make sure they know the potential consequence.
Growing up in my home, it was a single parent home, and sometimes the streets is what taught me everything that I know today. And don't get me wrong, my father's taught me a lot. He taught me great work ethics. He taught me dedication. He also taught me respect. If I was wrong, he put me in line. But at the same time, I was still there by myself, teaching myself with other kids that were out there teaching themselves, doing their things. And basically, our world has changed a heck of a lot in the matter of 10 years. That being said, now we have YouTube showing people how to do things. We have these open doors that are opening a lot of this. And a lot of back in the days type of thing, we used to have a filter where there was a committee that says, we don't put that on TV. We don't put that on TV. Now there is no filter. So it's really hard. It's really hard to see where this is originating from. But growing up with this single family home, you know, that's a rough thing. And there's a lot of that going on. Not to mention when you have two parents, but it's not affordable living. Guess what happens? And you know, now we have to work constantly, and now we have nobody watching our children. And the people that are watching our children and teaching our children are teachers that are underpaid. And sometimes they're like, I can't get control of this.
So, and that's why the out of school programming is so important. So
Out of school?
Yeah.
So outside of school, so after school, so YMCA, Boys and Girls Clubs,
Which costs money.
Big.
I mean, let's
Nobody
just-
is turned away. Nobody is
Nobody's
turned away.
Okay.
So
That's
based
something
on
that we
need,
could put on there.
yeah, Boys and Girls Club in particular, when there's a need, they'll find a way.
Yeah.
And that's why the fundraisers that we do, Dancing for the Stars, just in a couple weeks, and other things are so important because that helps those families that are doing everything they can to raise their kids right and give them productive places and safe places to be when they're not in school. That's why that's so important.
Yeah, maybe we could go ahead and put some numbers out.
You know, here you have a program that a group of people who are willing to go out and help in the early years of education. And I know for a fact that there's some schools that don't even allow Matt Force to come in. And to me, that's just, I'm like, why would you not allow these people to come in and help with this issue? And going back to
Glenn, they're taking the Ten Commandments and the Bible out, man.
Whatever,
Why would they allow Matt Force?
Go figure. But, you know, I listened to what you were saying in your time, Martina, and I'm a little bit older than you are, believe it or not. And
No, I can't tell.
know, I can't.
I can't tell.
You know, as a product of the late 60s and early 70s, we never had things like fentanyl out there. This is a try one time and die drug.
Yeah.
We had, the people in my era would smoke half a lid of marijuana just to get a little buzz. I mean, now they take 2 hits and they're on some other planet. You know, everything has exploded. Marijuana has become hybrid into a high THC, and sometimes they actually vape 100% THC. And I don't want to get into this big drug deal, you know, because that's for another show. But that's the problems that we're having out there. That's what we're seeing in our communities where our police department has to become involved. And before the show, the chief and I were talking about even things that we knew that were so destructive, like crack cocaine, and that it's coming back. You know,
Methamphetamine in particular, yeah.
I mean, you know, you just kind of think, why people know the dangers of this stuff, but yet they just, you know, again, I don't wake up tomorrow and know that I'm a crack addict or I'm a methamphetamine freak or whatever. Yep. They think that is fun. They try to numb themselves in some way, and before they know it, they have a problem. But then again, we go back to fentanyl. You know, their problem's over usually the first time they take it.
That's crazy. We have some reader questions out there that we're going to go through. I don't know if
I love the questions.
Yeah, the questions.
Let's do the questions.
You know, let's talk about a little bit of the human child trafficking and prostitution. It seems that it has increased in the Quad Cities. Is this true? And if it is, can you elaborate?
Well, it's everywhere, and the population that's exploited in this is usually runaways. Now there are some incidences, mostly I'm familiar with down in the valley, where young people boys and girls are actually recruited into sex trafficking, and a lot of times there's drug involvement. A lot of times it starts with, you know, something that would appear more innocent in a relationship, but then the doors start closing around this young person, and then they just don't have a way out, where they don't have any money, they don't have their ID, they don't have their own way of reaching out to people. So there's been a real concerted effort. ASU has been very involved, Cindy McCain, of course, very involved in identifying and training people on what to recognize in somebody that may be being trafficked. Now, I have to say that if there were not a demand for in the sex industry, if there was not a demand by people who are willing to pay money, we wouldn't have this problem. So there's really two sides to it, and
Yeah, there's definitely. I mean, everybody wants to say, "Oh, the drug dealer," but at the same time, the consumer is also the culprit. in
it
this.
perpetuates. And if there was no money to be made, this wouldn't happen. And
They'll go try to find some way to make money.
Yeah.
so whether it's pornography, whether it's prostitution, a lot of that is done certainly through social media and online apps. And it's a significant issue. We just made an arrest about a month ago of a woman who was running a massage parlor that was offering services beyond a massage.
I think we got that on the Prescott News, right?
Yeah.
So do you, as when you were talking about the runaways, do you help with the runaways? Do you have sources that you are able to go ahead and push out or help out with these runaways if they're looking for this help? Or how does that work out? If they're underage, obviously, they should be going to somewhere, right? Or do you just like catch and release?
No. If somebody is underage and they're couch surfing or even worse, living on the street, we definitely intervene and get them connected, either back with family, back with foster, if that's the case. We don't want, because they're so incredibly vulnerable. Very soon we will have the very first runaway youth shelter, so an emergency shelter for young people. It'll be for boys only when it starts, but that is about to begin, and it'll be located in Prescott Valley. So there will be a place that we can take young men so that they're not living on the street. They're not vulnerable to exploitation, which is far too often what happens.
Yeah, that was actually one report that just came out just recently, saying that there was over 400 or 500 children that are homeless, and then I don't know if that's included with the family, but I heard about that. Is this something that is true?
So that they're not necessarily disconnected from a family member or a parent. So might be the whole unit, and it very often is that they're staying with relatives or they're staying with friends, so they don't have their own home. We're very aware,
and you establish them homeless if they're living in somebody else's
Yes,
home.
and that's how it's defined through the schools, and that's where this particular information came from. So we're always, patrol officers are out 24/7, and if we see a family living in a car, we're going to do everything possible to get them situated into an immediate location, whether that's a hotel room or somebody's willing to take them in, because we have those families available to us that hey, can you house these?
Yeah.
These
So
folks
there's definitely resources out there.
There's resources out there. We have a wonderful collaborative of services, from U.S. Vets to CCJ to Salvation Army, Project Aware, the Pass Shelter. There's a wonderful, and they're just so, they're not going to let somebody just flounder and not have a place to stay. They're amazing. It's just an amazing group of nonprofits here, and I can tell you that in the two other police departments I worked in, I never had the opportunity to interact. And part of it is that emergency response. Hey, we have somebody. What can you do to help us? But on the planning and prevention side of things, the police department is involved in things every step of the way. And that's very unique, and that's one of the things I love about being in Prescott.
Yeah, the first people that see the problems and the issues at hand, and with this organization, you're able to go ahead and be the first person that touches this, rather than having a non-heart, like, okay, yeah, there's a problem, and then turn the head. So that's good to know.
That's a
really
great question. There was another question somebody asked me, and I wanted to ask the chief. If there was, we'll go back to fentanyl for a moment. Fentanyl in marijuana, cocaine, laced in these other drugs. Have we seen anything like that up here?
We have heard examples of it being in marijuana. We haven't actually seen it. And when we take pills off the street and we're able to test them, the thing about these mimic pills that's particularly dangerous is you could buy 6 pills. Take 3 of them, no issues. They describe it as cookie batter. So, and there's absolutely no quality control in these labs that create these pills that are down in Mexico. And so you could have 3 pills that maybe have nothing in them, maybe not any kind of opioid at all. And then the 4th pill has a lethal dose of fentanyl. Same batch, same source. So, and then the other thing we're finding is because addiction, the nature of addiction is what it is, some people are seeking fentanyl because they need more.
Yeah.
They need more of a high than an opioid or heroin can provide. Yeah.
I'm not trying to correct the idea of where this substance is coming, but I did read or watch a report from, I don't know if it's reputable, but we're going to go ahead and say that it's Vice News. Vice News comes out, and one of the things that they talk about is fentanyl. And the place that this is actually produced and actually manufactured is in Japan. China or Japan, one of the offshore deals. Is this true? And if it is this how it's coming into our country through the borders of Mexico?
When this began, that would be a true statement. Came in from China. Today, and I just met with DEA earlier in the week, they would say 100% is coming from Mexico because it's very profitable and they can produce a huge number of pills very, very inexpensively and then sell them right across the border. And you know, we know that we're a pipeline, Texas, California, and Arizona because of the border, and they come through Arizona and are dispersed throughout the country.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. I mean, you know, and this is one of the reasons why they want to secure the borders because of this trade thing that's going on. But once again, if there wasn't a consumer, then there wouldn't be a need for the drug.
No question.
And you know, how people get addicted to these drugs or get on these drugs as I would say, just on my own personal thoughts, are the doctors. Doctors are giving, you know, these prescriptions that are causing these things to happen, and it just starts evolving into bigger things. And then all of a sudden, their insurance runs out, and they can't afford these drugs to go ahead and kill the pain, so they end up going to the streets, and that's where they end up falling into a position where they don't know exactly what kind of drug they're taking. They're just needing it because of the pain that they're going through. And, you know, knowing me, I'm a human being, knowing a lot of people that are having an issue with their insurances, their doctors, because there is like a major push on doctors, pain management, I guess they call them pain management doctors, and they're not giving these drugs. So these people are being, quote unquote, forced to go find this stuff on the streets. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or what's your ideas on that?
Sure. There's a very well established history of overprescribing of opioids. We know that.
For profit?
That's factual. I'm not gonna go there. The city of Prescott is intending to be a plaintiff in bringing litigation against Big Pharma. And so we're in the process of gathering information.
I read that.
The city council approved that process. But in doing research for that, we find that there in Yavapai County, between 2007 and 2017, there were 130 prescriptions per 100 population. Now think about that. For every person, man, woman, and child, there were over that number of prescriptions, and each prescription is typically 30, 60, 90 pills. There was a lot of prescribing going on. Through the state and through the federal government and changes in the requirements, that has been corrected. And unfortunately, people that are legitimately in pain are struggling because they're not able to get prescriptions the way they were in the past. So there's going to have to be kind of some corrective Because that wasn't the intent. That's not what Governor Ducey intended to do by limiting the number of pills that you could get if you sprain your ankle or have a root canal, which I did. So the numbers are very small, but it's also because we know a lot more about how quickly you can become addicted. And so substituting other means, so acetaminophen and ibuprofen combination as opposed to an Oxy or Percocet or something like that, has a lot of value. And that's what the medical profession is being trained in now. So
I think they're a little bit too late. I mean, don't get me
Well,
wrong.
they're-
Hopefully it starts
yeah.
snowballing,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's just like, dang it.
It has to be changed,
It should have
though.
been, this-
most people would say this is going to take a generation to solve.
Yeah, and that's heartfelt because it just seems like you try to work on one thing and another thing pops up. And earlier you were saying that methamphetamine is on a rise now, based off of maybe because everybody's been too opioid out, and now they're just like, oh, we need to wake up, and so meth is the next thing. I
don't know if that works that way, but
we need to wake
that's
up.
pretty.
We have a couple more questions. I mean, and Glenn, unless you guys want to keep on.
I got a couple other things I would like to talk to Debbie about, but let's do the questions because this is Prescott Talks. I want to get those questions answered. And then
All right, so we had another question that came in, and it was basically talking about the technology that Prescott Police Department has, and one of them is GPS sticky trackers. Do you know anything about that? I seen it actually on a cop show the other day where they shoot the car or they tag the car and then it sticks to their car. If they want to drive off or something, they let it and there's the GPS trackers on it. It's such an awesome innovation. And I don't know if they're shooting it out of their car or they're putting it on the car or whatever. But
like an ankle bracelet for your car. Is that what you're trying
well,
to say?
no, they actually shoot it and it lands on the car.
So if
they
somebody
stick it-
is fleeing, if there's like a
Yeah.
pursuit kind of thing,
Yeah.
well, I can tell you we don't have any.
So that's good,
Maybe I
that's
should
good.
go shopping, and we haven't. The budget hasn't been approved yet this year, so maybe I can
That's
get us some
one of
sticky
the-
trackers. We're very fortunate. We really lots of differences between the urban areas and here in Prescott. We have had pursuits, but very, very small numbers. And a lot of times there's other agencies involved because we have Yavapai County, we have Prescott Valley, into Chino. It's pretty quick to move through those areas, and we're very cognizant of the danger, the risk that presents to the public. So our pursuit policy is pretty restrictive.
Yeah, that happened that one year where we had a pursuit that came from Prescott to Prescott Valley, and it ended up in here, downtown Prescott. And then from that day on, they said, don't follow the pursuit.
Well, and communication is key, and that's why our regional communications center that is just down the street is so important, because Prescott Valley dispatcher is sitting right next to the Prescott dispatcher, next to the Prescott fire dispatcher.
That's awesome.
And so everybody knows what's going on, and we don't lose critical seconds trying to call somebody and hope that they answer and tell them, hey, there's a pursuit coming your way.
It's not like a Cobra office.
It's very cool. That's go with another question.
It says let Glenn talk.
That must be Corey out there. Let Glenn talk.
Me.
No, you're asking good questions. And
Well, I love
think
questions.
that's,
It's one of the way that I actually educate myself, and one day I'm going to be,
Yeah.
knowledgeable.
Yeah. Knowledgeable.
One day I will figure this out.
Well, one of the questions I wanted to ask Debbie, and I wanted to, the chief, is again, we're going back to the Second Amendment, and you touched on a little bit. There's more CCW holders in Prescott than in any other city in Arizona. So to the people who do decide to carry and they get pulled over, what do you want to see? What do your officers want to see? How do we handle that? I know I keep my hands on the wheel. Now, I haven't been pulled over, but,
If you would.
if I was, hands
so
on the
funny.
wheel, I identify myself and I identify where my firearm is on me. Am I doing it right or
Absolutely,
am I doing it,
absolutely. Yeah, keeping your hands where the officer can see them.
Mm-hmm.
If there's other people in the car, it's helpful if they do the same. The officer will, typically introduce him or herself, tell them what they will tell you what they need. So driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, whatever it is. Yes, officer, I do want you to know that there is a weapon in the car. It's in the console. It's in the glove box. It's on my ankle. What would you like me to do? And let that officer direct you. Don't say, hey, here it is.
Yeah. Look what I got.
And it's,
Yeah, it's a serious matter.
Our officers here they carry guns themselves, obviously on the job, off the job. They're hunters. There's a great respect here for firearms, and so that's not going to be alarming to them at all. Just let them guide what would happen next. If it's in the console, they may ask you to step out. If it's on your person, they'll just tell you what to do and just follow that. Right. A lot of these traffic stops that go badly, and we see the videos and they go viral, and it's hard to witness. A lot of it is because the individual being stopped wants to challenge the reason for the stop before anything else. Trust that there's a reason for the stop. There's a traffic violation been witnessed, or the vehicle matches the description of somebody we're looking for, something like that. But the conflict is created when, what'd you stop me for? You don't have the right, you're wrong, all of those things. And then it escalates. And we spend a lot of time training on de-escalation, on keeping things under control. But you went through Citizens Academy. You know what it's like for an officer to make a traffic stop and walk up on a car when you have no idea what you're walking up on. And we don't become complacent. We don't assume that the worst is going to happen, but we don't assume it's not. And just being in that space where everybody is kept safe. Sure. The other thing I would say is we've just had a horrible year already with officers that are injured and killed in traffic-related matters. So knowing that not only is the officer approaching a car where you don't know what could transpire, but also you're in traffic. Other drivers are coming up on the scene, and the Salt River Pima officer that was killed early in the year because somebody was texting. Yeah. And crossed over lanes of traffic and hit him at the door of a vehicle that he had stopped. So there's a lot going on. And so, yes, if you have a weapon in the car, just let the officer know and follow whatever he or she tells you to do.
Yep, good advice. I know I asked the same question to Lieutenant Chino, and they actually, they told us the same thing. They will ask if there's a weapon in the car if you don't say there's a weapon in the car. Legally, as a CCW holder, you have to tell them, yes, there is a weapon in the car once you've been asked. And their protocol is basically they disarm you. They take your magazine and unload your magazine, and when the stop is over and you're ready to leave, they give you your gun back and they give you a handful of bullets and a magazine, and they let them go ahead and take off. It's all about officer safety. And when Debbie's talking about this again, I've gone through some training with the city of Prescott, and prior to that, it's all about going home too. I mean, these guys are, the men and women that are pulling you over are mothers, fathers, and sons and daughters, and everybody wants to go home, and they're not there to attack you. Or if they see something going on, hey, just sign the ticket. You can plead your case with a judge. That guy, that gal, let them write it away and let them do their JOB, and then go to the court, because that's where it's going to ultimately wind up anyway. If you're innocent, go ahead and say it. That's the beauty of our system. It's the beauty of being American. We can always have that opportunity to go before a magistrate and plead our case. So, the Constitution's there. What's up with the hands-free driving?
Yeah.
What is up with... That's a great one.
Well, of course, first of the year, our hands-free ordinance went into effect here in Prescott. The county has a statute. Really, everybody here has adopted. So Prescott Valley, Chino, Prescott, and the county have very similar ordinances. So basically, you can't talk on your phone. You can't text while you're driving. You can't even do it when you're stopped at a light. You need to pull off the road. Now, this would be allowed if there's an emergency and you need to get on the phone to alert us to something. So what we're waiting for is the state legislature to take action. There were two bills. One was hands-free, one was distracted. They were trying to merge those two, and we're still going through that process. The problem here, and it's not great, we did it well in Yavapai County, and I really want to thank the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors, the city councils of the different cities for doing it this way. Ours are very, very similar. There's only differences in the penalty. That's not the way it is down in Maricopa County. So if you drive from Surprise to Glendale to Phoenix to Tempe to Mesa, you will have very different ordinances, very different requirements, and you don't know where the boundaries are, so you can't possibly know what you're allowed to do or what you should. I will tell you, you shouldn't be talking on your phone. You shouldn't. You shouldn't be texting.
Just start there.
Yeah, I mean, we know this, and it's just such a hard behavior for people to change once they get comfortable thinking that they can text or check Facebook or whatever while they're driving. You can't. We know. Everybody around you knows you're not driving as well as you think you are. So that's why this is important. It's not an easy thing to enforce. We haven't had a lot of tickets that have been written. We look for distraction, whether that's driving while texting, or you have a pet in your back seat, or a child, or you're eating, or whatever it is. When we have a collision, we look for those things that would indicate distraction, and then that's how we're gathering data statewide about this issue. But it's a hard thing because people feel like they can do it well. They can't. A lot of people don't drive well without a distraction. Unfortunately, yeah, I'm sorry. Have to say it.
Yeah.
A lot of our issues here are related to driving.
Isn't there a distracted driving in the vehicle code? There was in California.
No,
I don't know if there is.
No, that's
so
what. That's what.
Is this including a dog on your lap?
Well, my point is, and I totally understand the cell phone usage and the distracted, but I see a lot of different types of distracted driving.
Absolutely,
and,
no question.
It's not all cell phone, though. That's the most common, and that's the most what we see. But there's all types of, from the hamburger in the afternoon to the burrito going down the freeway.
What about reading a book?
I've seen that. I've seen someone with a plate of spaghetti in their lap with a fork eating out. Yeah,
it could go on. But I'm thinking
we got our knees.
We did have a distracted driving vehicle code in Los Angeles, but I don't know.
The legislature in Arizona is looking at that, and that would cover all of the issues.
That would take care of it all.
Yeah.
So what is the first charge if you get pulled over while utilizing your phone?
Oh,
what is it?
I think I'm going to say it's maybe $65 fine.
I hear somebody wrote the other day. Obviously, it's hearsay. $250 fine in Prescott Valley. Yeah.
I don't think so. I think that would be, and again, I'm not.
Like the second one?
Very, very familiar. Second one, or perhaps if there's a collision involved.
A bigger deterrent.
I'm gonna have to find this out for just for my own sake. $250 for your first offense.
So you can use Bluetooth. You can use your phone. Hands free. You're connected to your car, or just using speaker.
That's how we could raise money for the Prescott Police Department. We'll start selling these hand-free tools.
That look like a hand. You clip it on your dashboard.
And then have Prescott Police Department on the side of it.
I got them for all of our patrol cars because even though public safety is exempted, I want them to be safe. There's a lot of things going on in the police car anyway.
Next week's fundraiser.
No, that's an example, and I applaud. I think that's great.
That is
an example
that is how you're
that our
supposed
law
to
enforcement is,
but
following the rules just like everybody else. Even though they are exempt to that, people who work. I'm a hammer operator, so legally I can pick up my microphone and call my call numbers, and I can do that because I'm under a federal. But I don't because that's not what we do. We
Yeah.
watch the road and make sure that, kids and dogs and other drivers don't encroach into your driveway.
So I see, obviously chatter on Facebook. I love, these Facebook groups, but the chatter on Facebook groups where they're like, well, the officer has a computer, a phone, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. And I was like thinking, well, I think they went to school for all of this. I mean, just in order for them to do their job.
And they're keeping you safe.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
keeping you safe.
They're serving you. But, we're running close to our hour. Well, we are on our hour. So before we wind this thing up, I know we got another question, but Chief,
We got word for the fine. It's $100 fine, and then
Oh.
it goes up from there.
Oh,
Starting
okay.
first.
No,
offense.
perfect.
Thank you.
Citizens Academy. So I'm wearing my shirt. I'm a graduate of the #1 class. the
That's
first
right.
class.
How long did that take you to get that shirt?
It's 5 weeks.
Can
6
you-
weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, you
6
don't.
weeks.
You can't
And
just buy it.
And
No.
I'm going to tell you,
Not available.
not available.
Not available.
You have to earn it.
I can tell you, I absolutely look forward to every one of those classes. I was involved in law enforcement back in the 70s. I was absolutely blown away of law enforcement in 2018. That's when I took it. The communication centers, if anybody's ever seen that, if you want to look into it, know what these guys and gals go through and witness what Prescott has to offer as keeping you safe and keeping your family safe. Chief, I'll let you take it over, but I just have to bring it up because I can't say enough of what I learned and the opportunity that you gave me and your department in knowing your officers and your lieutenants and your sergeants and Deputy Chief Bonnie, who was great. How appreciative I was to learn all that stuff.
So starting with the understanding that this is your police department. It's not my police department. It's not Mayor Mangarelli's police department. It's the community's police department. And we want to offer as much information and be as transparent as we possibly can. And so much of the things that happen are because of we don't understand. So we just open our doors. You get to walk in the shoes, sit at the desks, drive the cars of a police officer. We actually take you out to the firing range one night, and there's a SWAT demo, and you can actually shoot our rifles if you're inclined. So very experiential. We've improved everyone based on feedback. So we're in our fourth or fifth class, which is just about to graduate in 2 weeks. So it just, and what I really loved about this particular class, full class, which is just about 24, 25 people, they learned about us from reading about the application process being open in e-news or the Courier or on social media. We have people that just moved to Prescott a week ago that sign up to come and participate in the Citizen Academy because they want to know more about the community. They want to know more about policing, and they want to know how is it different here from wherever they came from. And so it's a deep dive. It's 6 weeks. We meet Tuesday nights for 3 hours. Usually we go longer, but the majority of the feedback we get is that they had no idea and thank you. And then from there, people have the opportunity to go on a ride-along, volunteer for, or apply for volunteer positions. And so there's a great connection that's formed at that point.
Yeah, and everybody that has questions out there, you guys can join up for this. And how do they find out this information?
So we use all of the traditional media, e-news, Courier. It'll be on our website. Our next class will be in the fall. So we'll start gearing up for that probably in August. And it's just a very simple application process. So we want to make sure that, everybody has clear background because we really do get a lot of access to us and information about, our facilities and things like that. So we are a little bit cautious, but so far everybody has just been so wonderful and supportive and just really enjoying it. And we love that we can offer that.
That is awesome.
It
I
is.
like that.
It is awesome. I mean, if you enjoy.
Have you done the class?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, I was in the first class.
So you
jumped
passed the
out.
background check.
Yeah, I did.
That's
Yeah,
a
we
good
know.
thing. See,
And I didn't have to pay for it. No, I'm just kidding.
that's funny.
Yeah, I mean, from the scientific side to going out to the firing range, canine exhibits, going to the academy. Actually, we're talking and being with the people who were in the academy at that time, talking about traffic stops. The only thing I didn't know about, Chief, was the firing. I didn't get to pick up one of the rifles with the fun
You
switch.
didn't?
I wanted the fun switch. I go, well, let me have the fun. Yeah, the fun switch is the auto select, by the way. So
When Donna and Elizabeth came through, it's like, oh, we get to
Oh,
shoot
yeah.
ammo that we didn't have to pay for. You did through your taxes,
How
but
fun. And we did the simulator, and that was another
Yeah,
thing. Shoot,
yeah,
don't shoot,
Vertra.
de-escalation. And that was a lot of fun, too. I don't know if anybody's ever experienced that, but I keep thinking about what I did wrong and what I did right during that time, but that was pretty cool.
I got some one more question, just for the technology question. Do you have any new technology that's going to be coming up that you guys are trying out, or that seems to be either a good thing for your force or be something that would be good for?
the biggest thing that we have happening is the second phase of a conversion to a new computer-aided dispatch and records management system. And we're just within a couple weeks of that being, we're going to hit the switch. And so all of our officers have been working with tablets, but with an old back-end system. So now, as they fill out reports, so we can scan driver's license, which will populate all of the fields in a report or on a ticket. It's from back in the days when I started, and definitely when Glenn was in law enforcement, where it was black ink, bold print, filling out, repeating information over and over. This is has much greater efficiency. We can take photos.
Who would have thought that would happen?
Photos with our tablet that will go right into the report. So, and then that won't have to be entered by somebody after. So, it goes directly into
Paperwork.
Hopefully, much less paper involvement.
And no sergeants with red pens. I still remember.
Yeah. But then were you ever the sergeant with a red pen? Because
Yeah.
I still have a red pen and I still find things here.
I thought about that when I went through the police, their academy, the Citizens Academy. They were typing out their reports, and I went, "Where's the red pens?"
So, one of the things that has been forever a complaint is that the paperwork takes longer than
Who's complaining?
officers. and it's valid. If you
true.
spend more time documenting what you've done than what it took for you to actually do it, there's something wrong. So this efficiency will allow them to capture things real time, review it, get it in the system, and then get back out on the street.
Citizens accident investigation, is that going on in Prescott?
We have one civilian accident investigator, and it's Terry North. He actually retired from the Prescott Police Department and came back years later to do this. So
Nice retirement.
he focuses on
Awards of them.
parking, particularly downtown, when we have those trucks that extend way out into. He's the one.
Oh, that's such a bother. You're just like, you don't fit, man.
And so we painted lines so they don't even have to guess.
You actually put up signs too, and nobody
Yeah.
really gets it.
So he does a lot of that, but he also helps with accident investigation, and I've actually asked for more
What a great-
of that in the budget, so we'll see how that
Because
goes.
again, that ties up a lot of time
Yeah.
doing that. And I know even with modern technology, it still has to tie up a lot of time. So if we can get civilians out there to do that type of work and the citizen patrol, and again, great job, you guys who are out on the citizen patrol. You're volunteering your time, making our community better. Shout out for all you guys and gals that do that. So, with that, any other questions?
Oh, I got so much more, but
We got
I
so
got
much
cut off
more.
earlier. Lynn's like, let Glenn talk. I mean, I could sit here forever.
No, you
I'm
talk.
seriously. I have another question,
Yeah.
but I'll wait till after.
No, go ahead.
No, we have to definitely get off.
Round it up. Okay.
Yeah, we got some stuff to do today.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we would like to go ahead and set up some more. Maybe we get some of your top officers in, and let's talk about how they love their job. If they do or
They
don't.
do.
Obviously, they should love what their occupations are. But this was awesome meeting you. I know that I've seen a lot of you all over the media, but to have you here in your civilian clothes, everybody, she is human.
Yeah, there you go.
And she's awesome. And I really do appreciate you inviting me again. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
And sorry for talking the whole time.
Oh, you're fine.
She's like, I'm not going to let this down, Lynn.
Yeah, I think we've been damaged.
I've been fixed, guys.
Chief Flack, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you
We
Such a
really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
So very much.
Thank you for taking your time with us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Much love, everybody, and don't forget to go ahead and download the podcast every Saturday and Sunday, and also join in on the newsletters to go ahead and get the up-to-date stuff that is coming up. So yeah, thank you for joining us over here at the Prescott Talks in Prescott, Arizona, at the
See?
E News office.
See you next Friday.
Yes.